A woman sits beneath a solitary date palm in the hill country of Ephraim, the dry summer wind rattling the fronds above her head, living in caves and creeping along hidden goat paths just to survive. The highways are empty. The public squares are silent. The river violently breaches its banks. The flat plains of Jezreel turn into a deep, freezing swamp. The physics of the battlefield instantly invert. The heavy iron wheels sink up to their axles in the thick sludge. The chariots stop moving. The horses thrash in the rising water, their hooves slipping, their harnesses dragging them down into the mud. The iron is not a tactical advantage. It is a death trap. The Canaanite soldiers try to maneuver. They try to pull back. But the mud grips the wheels like concrete. They are stuck inside their own technological superiority. The Israelite farmers hit the valley floor. They are wearing light tunics. They carry light spears. They do not have heavy armor to drag them down. They move swiftly through the mud, rushing past the frantic horses, pulling the armored Canaanite soldiers from their trapped chariots. Blood mixes with the brown water. The screaming of horses echoes against the thunder. Sisera watches his invincible 20-year empire drown in the dirt. He panics. He leaps over the edge of his chariot. He abandons his army. He runs away on foot, splashing through the freezing water. Desperate to find shelter, he flees northeast, toward the territory of a nomadic Kenite tribe that has a peace treaty with his king. He thinks he has outrun the danger. He thinks the worst of the violence is behind him. An entire generation of men has learned to look down, to stay quiet, to accept the humiliation of an occupied land. But there is a tent up ahead, and a woman standing in the doorway who knows exactly who he is. We are a species that knows exactly how to internalize our own defeat. If you look closely at your own life, you probably have a Jezreel Valley. You have a geography where an adversary has parked something heavy, something metallic, something that feels undeniably permanent. It might be a generational addiction that has haunted your family for decades, a quiet but suffocating anxiety, or a cycle of failure that dictates every decision you make. You can feel the vibration of it in your chest before you even open your eyes in the morning. Over time, if those chariots stay parked long enough, you stop trying to reclaim the open plains. You retreat to the rocky highlands. You learn to navigate the narrow, hidden goat paths of your own limitations, whispering to yourself that avoiding the enemy is the same thing as defeating him. This is not spiritual maturity. It is the paralysis of the faithful. You calculate the odds, just as the tribes of Israel did in the dark. You look at your fragile wooden spears, your exhausted willpower, your scattered focus, your trembling prayers, and you measure them against the cold, unyielding iron of your circumstances. The math always tells you to stay hidden. The math tells you to keep your head down and accept the occupation. But the God of the ancient text is not confined to the mathematics. And then there is the woman under the tree. Most people read this story and assume her leadership is a glitch in the biblical system of bronze and iron. He alters the atmospheric pressure. He takes the very element that made the oppressor terrifying, the heavy, impenetrable weight of their technology, and he uses the mud to turn it into an anchor. The rushing brown water does not negotiate with the metal scythes. The freezing sludge does not care about the tactical brilliance of the Canaanite Empire. What was designed to crush Israel becomes the exact mechanism of Sisera's destruction. If you are in a season where you are terrified to step off the mountain, remember that the woman of fire did not command Barak to build better weapons. She commanded him to step into the valley so God could drown the weapons that already existed. God does not need you to outmuscle the iron. He just needs you to stand in the valley and wait for the rain. But the destruction of the chariots is only the first half of the deliverance. Sisera is currently running through the freezing rain, miles away from the sinking metal. Convinced that he has outsmarted the ambush, he is looking for a place to hide, believing that the Israelite military has missed their chance to take off the head of the snake. And the detail that changes how you read this entire war is waiting for him inside a civilian tent. Sisera stumbles into the encampment of Heber the Kenite. His lungs heave. His armor is caked in freezing brown mud. They look at the chaotic, bloody era of the judges and think God simply ran out of capable men. A woman steps out of her tent. Yael. She calls to him. Turn aside. My lord, turn aside to me. Do not be afraid. What happens next is not just an assassination. It is a calculated, total subversion of ancient Near Eastern law. Sisera asks for water, a basic request for a fleeing refugee. Jael gives him milk. She opens a skin of heavy, curdled goat's milk. She gives him a bowl. She covers him with a thick rug. She hides him in the women's quarters. To an ancient Hebrew listener, the alarm bells are deafening. A man does not enter a married woman's tent. A woman does not invite a lone warrior inside. A host does not feed a refugee heavy, sleep-inducing dairy when he needs to stay alert. Every move is deliberate. Every gesture disarms him. He thinks he has found a sanctuary. He thinks he has secured an alliance. He commands her to stand guard at the door and lie to anyone who comes looking. He closes his eyes. The exhaustion takes him. Then Jael reaches for her weapon. She does not pick up a sword. She does not reach for a bronze spear. She picks up a tent peg. And she picks up a workman's hammer. In nomadic cultures, women pitch the tents. So he was forced to use a woman to shame a cowardly generation into action. They frame her as an anomaly, an emergency protocol. They struck the camp. They drove the pegs. They knew exactly how to angle the iron spike into the hard, baked dirt. They knew exactly how much force it took to split the earth. Jael's hands are calloused from years of driving these exact stakes. The weapon is not a desperate improvisation. It is a theological judgment. Sisera used iron chariots, the pinnacle of masculine military machinery, to crush the homes of Israel. Now, a woman uses the iron of her own home to crush him. The contrast is the point. The irony is the revelation. To die by the hand of a woman, using a domestic camping tool, was the ultimate humiliation for an ancient general. His pride is dismantled just as thoroughly as his army. She walks softly to the sleeping general. She positions the spike against his temple. She swings the heavy hammer. The peg drives completely through his skull. It pins his head deep into the floor of the tent. The oppressor is fastened to the dirt. The 20-year reign of terror ends with a single, brutal strike in the dark. The narrative could end right there with the body on the floor. But the final word on this victory does not come from a battlefield report. Barak reaches the encampment of the Kenites. His lungs burn. His bronze sword is drawn. He has been running through the freezing mud. A divine backup plan because the men refuse to step up. It turns her authority into a symptom of male brokenness rather than a sovereign choice. Hunting the commander of the chariots, Jael walks out of her tent to meet him. Come, and I will show you the man whom you are seeking. He steps into the dim, stifling heat of the tent. He sees the heavy, curdled milk spilt on the rug. He sees the blood pooling in the dry dust. And he sees the commander of the iron chariots pinned to the earth like a piece of canvas. The war is over. But the theology of the victory still has to be written. Deborah stands on a rocky outcrop, overlooking the flooded, chaotic valley, and she begins to sing. Judges chapter 5 is one of the oldest surviving pieces of poetry in the entire Hebrew Bible. It is a fierce, rhythmic war ballad, echoing off the wet stones. When she sings, she does not take the credit for the kill. She praises Jael. She praises the tribes of Zebulun and Naphtali who risked their lives in the open field, who rushed into the floodwaters with nothing but wooden spears. But she fiercely curses the tribes who stayed home, the men of Reuben who sat by their campfires merely discussing the war, the men of Asher who stayed comfortably by the sea. She exposes the cowardice of those who debated the conflict while their brothers bled in the mud. But right in the middle of the song, in verse 7, she sings a line that defines her entire existence. But if you look closer at the ancient Hebrew title she actually carries, at the exact geographic coordinates of her palm tree, village life in Israel ceased until Deborah arose a mother in Israel. The English word arose is the Hebrew verb kum. It means to stand firm, to rise up, to take a physical stand against an enemy. It is a posture of absolute defiance. Notice what she calls herself in the aftermath of a total military victory. She does not call herself a warrior. She does not call herself a general. She calls herself a mother. In the ancient Near East, a mother is not a passive, domestic figure. She is the fierce, unyielding protector of life. A mother looks at starving children, empty highways, and silent villages, and she refuses to let the death toll climb. She looks at a 20-year darkness and decides she will not let her children die in the shadows. Her leadership is not a concession to a cowardly generation. It is the exact blueprint of divine deliverance. The woman of torches did not take the position because she was a divine backup plan. She took the position because the house was burning down, the children were starving, and someone had to stand up in the flames. She sang her song so Israel would never forget how the iron was broken. But the lyrics carry an echo that reaches far beyond the valley of mud. And it demands something from every person listening today. At the domestic weapon that finally ends the war, you start to see something the backup plan theology completely misses. The iron chariots terrorized the valley for 20 years, and a woman under a palm tree refused to hide. A military commander hesitated in the northern hills, and a prophet bound her sandals to march into the war zone. 10,000 farmers charged onto the flat plains, and the skies ripped open to flood the dry river. The heavy wheels sank into the freezing mud, and the technological supremacy of an empire became a death trap. A fleeing general stumbled into a quiet tent, and a nomadic woman handed him a bowl of heavy milk. The oppressor closed his eyes on a woven rug, and a workman's hammer pinned him to the earth. The 20-year occupation ended in the dirt, and a mother stood on a rock to sing the victory. One storm, one tent peg, one mother who refused to stay seated. But maybe the part that stays with me most is the fire. Eshet Lapidot. Her leadership was not a celestial backup plan. It was the very spark that ignited the deliverance. She did not wait for the chariots to rust. She did not wait for the men of her generation to suddenly find their courage. Deborah is not a concession to male failure. She is the blueprint for a different kind of deliverance. She just became the lightning. If you are in a season where you feel like an anomaly, if you look at the heavy, immovable problems parked in your own life, and you are waiting for someone more qualified, someone more traditional, someone else to step up and fix it, look at the palm tree in Ephraim. Your calling is not a concession. The weapon in your hand, even if it looks like a fragile wooden spear or an ordinary tent peg, is exactly what the valley requires. And may the God who shatters iron with rain meet you in your own valley and give you the courage to stand up in the dark. If you have ever felt like your calling was an accident, or that you were only allowed in the room because someone else dropped the ball, the dust is thick on the sandals of the people lining up to see her. A farmer whose crops were stolen by Canaanite raiders. The reality of this text is going to change how you see your own assignment. To feel the weight of what she is about to do, you cannot start with the battlefield. You have to step into the shadow of the iron. The book of Judges is not a sanitized spiritual manual. It is a brutal, cyclical record of national amnesia. The pattern is always the same. Israel forgets their covenant. The protection lifts. An oppressor moves in. The people cry out, and a deliverer is raised. But the oppression under King Jabin of Hazor and his general, Sisera, is unique in its suffocating permanence. Usually, an invading force in the ancient Near East was seasonal. Marauders would sweep in during the harvest, pillage the barley and the wheat, burn a few storehouses, and retreat to their borders. But Sisera does not leave. He parks 900 iron chariots in the Jezreel Valley, establishing a permanent, choking grip on the region. To understand the terror of iron in the late Bronze Age, you have to look at what Israel is holding in their hands. Israel is an agrarian society of shepherds and farmers. They have wooden plows. They have bronze spearheads that chip, a traveler whose brother was cut down on the main road, a mother whose children are starving because the local well is guarded by enemy archers. and dull after a single strike against heavy armor. Iron is a completely different element. It is cold, dense, and unforgiving. When the Canaanite chariots roll out for maneuvers, the sunlight catches the metal scythes attached to the axles. The heavy wheels crush the wild wheat into the dirt, and the sound of hundreds of horses pounding. The flat valley floor echoes up into the mountains like rolling thunder. The text in Judges chapter 5 tells us the exact psychological toll of this sound. It says the highways were abandoned. Travelers took to the winding, hidden byways. Village life in Israel ceased entirely. This is the true anatomy of systemic subjugation. The 900 chariots were not a daily battlefield threat. They were an ecosystem of despair. General Sisera does not need to send soldiers into every Israelite home to maintain control. He only needs to dominate the valley, cutting off the trade routes and isolating the tribes. For 20 years, the people live under the shadow of this technological supremacy. Think about the timeline. A child born in the first year of Sisera's reign is now a 20-year-old adult, and they have never known a world where she is not pulling flax to weave linen. She is not grinding barley for the evening fire. They could walk freely on the main highway. They have only known the shadows of the goat paths. They have only known the hushed, frantic whispers of parents warning them to stay away from the valley. Fear, when sustained for 2 decades, rewires the nervous system of an entire culture. The men of Israel, the supposed warriors, the descendants of the army that marched around Jericho, have internalized this defeat. They look at the flat valley, they look at the iron, and they do the math. The math says to stay hidden. Survival becomes their highest theology, and when survival is your only goal, you will tolerate almost any humiliation just to breathe for another day. But mathematics cannot account for a prophet who refuses to hide. While the generals and the men of Israel are calculating the odds of failure in the dark, the woman sitting under the palm tree is receiving a transmission from outside the system, and she is about to send for a man who is hiding in the north. A runner climbs the steep northern hills. His lungs burn. The air grows thin. His sandals kick up dry red dirt. She is holding court for a nation that has completely lost its nerve. For 20 years, as he crosses into the territory of Naphtali, he is searching for a military commander named Barak. The runner carries a message from the woman under the palm tree. The message is not a political request. It is a military deployment. Barak unrolls the decree. The instructions are exact. Gather 10,000 men. Pull them from the tribes of Naphtali and Zebulun. March them to the summit of Mount Tabor. Wait for the iron chariots of Sisera to enter the valley below. Barak reads the strategy. He knows the geography. Tabor is a steep, dome-shaped mountain, rising straight out of the flat plains of Jezreel. It is a perfect defensive fortress. But the command is not to stay on the mountain. The command is to draw Sisera out, and then engage him on the flat ground. Barak does the math. 10,000 foot soldiers. 0 cavalry. 0 iron. A flat battlefield. 900 scythed chariots waiting by the Kishon River. Flesh against metal, bone against iron. The smell of horse sweat and certain slaughter. The tactical disadvantage is absolute. The plan defies every law of ancient warfare. Barak looks at the messenger. He delivers his response. If you will go with me, I will go. The Canaanite general Sisera has operated a fleet of 900 iron chariots in the Jezreel valley below. But if you will not go with me, I will not go. For centuries, commentators have mocked this response. They call Barak a coward. They frame his hesitation as a shameful abdication of male leadership, a pathetic refusal to do his duty. But read the scene in its actual context. Barak is being asked to lead 10,000 farmers and shepherds into a meat grinder. He is not terrified of the fight. He is terrified of stepping onto the battlefield without the presence of God. He looks at Deborah. He sees the only person in Israel who is actively hearing the voice of Yahweh. His hesitation is not a symptom of cowardice. It is an acknowledgement of reality. He knows that bronze swords cannot pierce iron armor. He knows that human strategy will bleed out in the valley dirt. He refuses to order 10,000 men to their deaths unless the prophetic word marches at the front of the column. Deborah receives his condition. She does not flinch. She does not shame him. She stands up. She binds her sandals. She steps out from the shade of the date tree. She tells him she will march with the army. But the glory of the final kill will not go to him. The commander of the iron chariots will be delivered into the hands of a woman. She leaves the safety of Ephraim. These are not just transportation. They are heavy, thundering machines of terror, equipped with metal scythes on their wheels designed to sever the legs of infantrymen. She walks toward the war zone. To understand why Barak will not march without her, and why 10,000 terrified men will follow her into a suicide mission, you have to look past her English title. You have to read the Hebrew hiding in the 4th verse of this chapter. Judges chapter 4. Verse 4 introduces her with a very specific, easily overlooked phrase. In English, almost every translation reads like this: Now Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lapidoth, was judging Israel at that time. Most people read that and assume Lapidoth is just her husband, a quiet guy who stayed home while his wife went out to command the army and save the nation. He is never mentioned before this verse, and he is never mentioned again. But the Hebrew text says she is an Eshet Lapidot. The word Eshet translates as woman of or wife of. But Lapidot is the plural form of the Hebrew noun, lapid. And lapid means torch, lightning, or a sudden flash of fire. It appears throughout the Old Testament to describe moments of intense, blazing divine intervention. In Genesis 15, when God makes a covenant with Abraham in the dark, he passes between the severed animal pieces as a smoking firepot and a flaming torch, a lapid, when Gideon surrounds the Midianite camp in the past, dead of night. His 300 men shatter clay jars to reveal blazing torches, lapidum. The ancient rabbis and linguistic scholars noticed this odd phrasing. You can hear them from miles away. The ground shakes before you ever see the dust cloud. Many scholars believe Lapidot is not a husband's name at all. In biblical Hebrew, naming a man a plural noun like torches would be highly irregular. But describing a prophet as a woman of torches or a woman of lightning fits the grammar and her character perfectly. Her title is not a domestic label. It is a spiritual classification. She is the woman of fire, the woman who carries the lightning. When 10,000 terrified farmers looked at her, they did not see a political substitute. They saw a burning conduit of Yahweh's presence, the only light in a 20-year darkness. If realizing that the Bible hides this much power just beneath the English translation makes you want to read it with fresh eyes, you're exactly who this channel is for. Drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe. Because every week we uncover the layers of the text you were never taught in Sunday school. So the woman of fire leaves the palm tree. She heads north. She stands with Barak on the summit of Mount Tabor as 10,000 men from the tribes of Naphtali and Zebulun grip their wooden spears and look down into the massive, flat expanse of the Jezreel Valley. They are waiting for the iron. And Sisera does exactly what Barak knew he would do. The Canaanite commander hears that an Israelite militia has gathered on the high ground. He summons all 900 of his iron chariots. He lines them up in the valley, anchoring his forces along the banks of the Kishon River, a wide, dry riverbed that cuts. Because of the iron, the people of Israel have abandoned the open plains. They have retreated into the rocky hills, through the flat plains. He is daring the Israelites to step off the mountain. If Barak's men stay on Tabor, they starve. If they come down, the iron scythes will sever their legs before they ever swing a sword. It is a flawless military trap. But there is a detail hiding in plain sight about the Kishon River, and the woman of fire is waiting for the sky to break. Deborah stands on the summit of Mount Tabor. She feels the wind shift. The air grows heavy. The smell of ozone cuts through the dry heat. She points down at the valley floor. She turns to Barak and gives the command. Up, for this is the day in which the Lord has given Sisera into your hand. 10,000 men grip their wooden spears. They scream. They charge down the steep, rocky slope. They run straight toward 900 iron chariots. Sisera watches the militia descending. He signals his commanders. Whips crack across the backs of thousands of horses. The chariots surge forward. The ground vibrates under the immense weight of the metal. Then the sky rips open. It does not rain. It floods. A torrential, blinding downpour shatters the valley in seconds. The Kishon River is a wadi, a dry, baked ravine for most of the year. But when a sudden storm hits the surrounding mountains, the runoff funnels directly into that ravine. The dry ditch becomes a raging, violent artery of brown water.